Okay. Hello, welcome. I am Janet Catraccia, the Chief Impact Officer at the Community Foundation, and I'm so glad you're here to talk about our Resilient Communities 2022 Spring Grant Cycle. It's really wonderful to see so many familiar faces, many of whom I've not seen in quite some time, and to just think about all the amazing work you're all doing in the community, and what a fabulous virtual room and space of so much great activity in our diverse communities. George Ferrari, our CEO, is here today as well, and I'm going to share with you for about 15 minutes. We'll record that, and then we'll have some time for some questions and answers, whatever, however we might want to share that space together. So I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you'll see some great photos of some of the great work in our community peppered through this PowerPoint as well. Some familiar faces. So I just want to start by, first of all, welcoming all of you, and I'm sure many of your organizations have taken some time in the past couple of years to reflect on mission and do some strategic changing, which these times have merited. And the Community Foundation is no different. So in 2021, we engaged in a strategic planning process that resulted in an update of our mission statement, which is here. We bring people and resources together to build a more equitable Tompkins County by inspiring diverse philanthropy, catalyzing collaborations, and championing inclusion and justice. And I hope you see evidence of all of that in this grant cycle. There's 6 values that that really rise to the top for us. We really want to be community driven. We value engagement, your engagement, our engagement. We value integrity, racial equity, relationships, and social justice. And I encourage you to visit our website to read more about our mission and vision and values, and get more acquainted with that. And feel free to contact us and ask us questions you might have. One of those areas, we took a deeper dive in 2020 to look at our grants and do some more analysis about grants that we knew were in service to social justice in many ways, but we wanted to really be able to measure that and articulate that more clearly. So this is a great chart that Amy Levere, our Chief Philanthropic Services Officer, created that summarizes grants for over a 4-year period from January 1st of 2018 to December 31st of 2021. 79% of our Tompkins County region grants fall into that social justice bucket. We divide that bucket into 4 categories: racial justice, rural services, advocacy, and resource equity. And you can see here over that 4 years, almost $1 million in racial justice and almost $4 million in resource equity. And essentially we prioritize where those grants go. If they don't fall into the racial justice explicitly, then they might go to the next tier. So the resource equity certainly has, as might be expected, a great percent, but 11%, which is up even from 2 years ago from 9%. And we've also emphasized racial equity in other components and elements of the work that we carry out. For example, over 56% of our board this year is people who identify as people of color. And we are very intentional in how we craft our review teams and our decision-making committees and board in order to advance those priorities. We have 3 main grant cycles, as we have the past couple of years. Our library grant cycles, those are applications that are only for the 33 libraries in the Finger Lakes Library System. Those that we've already received, they were due in late February, so we're in the midst of that grant cycle now. And then, of course, our Resilient Communities spring and fall grant cycles. If you have needs that fall outside of one of those grant cycles, we also play a matchmaking role with many of our existing funds. And so I encourage you to reach out to me if you have other kinds of needs and you're not sure if there's a match or whatever. You're welcome to reach out to me and we can explore that together. So many of you who received grants in the spring of 2021 recently received a reminder notification that those reports are due March 17th at 5 p.m. Those can be accessed by logging into your original application from last year, and you'll now see that report that wasn't there when you were making the application, but is there now. If you have any trouble with that, feel free to reach out to Madeline Rosas, our administrative coordinator, and her information will be up here later in the slides. And if you have any issues around, if you need an extension or any special circumstances, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to further discuss that with you. And then, of course, this grant cycle that we're discussing, those applications are due April 6th at 5 p.m. The grant range is $500 to $10,000. We have approximately, and this is always a guess because of that matchmaking that we do, about $280,000 available. I expect it to be more than that. But it's a moving number as we move through the grant cycle. And you may recall last year, we made a pretty substantial transition in our spring and fall grant cycle away from program-specific grants toward unrestricted grants. And this is a trend that we've been participating in now for longer periods of time. And we certainly know that best practices in the grant making field are to provide more unrestricted dollars. We really want you to have dollars where you can use them most so that they're very flexible. And we want to create an environment that increases your focus on strategic approaches, less on reporting and compliance and narrow dollars, but really on greater flexibility so that you can carry out your mission and achieve your goals. And we also really want to foster a culture of assessment and adjustment in these times that are so, as you all know, you're the experts in the changing needs of people that you serve and the changing pressures on our organizations. And we really want to provide those flexible dollars for you. As always, the applications that you submit are reviewed by community represented review teams. We convene those teams. We've been doing that virtually, and those teams carry out assessments through a variety of tools, such as a scoring rubric based on a variety of issues. Some of the things they look at are whether or not they're looking for organizations who are effectively setting and meeting goals in service to your mission. They're looking for organizations that have communicated well with those that you serve, and again, that effective assessing and adjustment of services. Are you learning? What are you learning as you move through the process, and how are you pivoting, that great word, toward meeting those needs? And as always, which we have a long history over the Community Foundation, looking for clear evidence of collaboration. And I like to point out here that we're not just talking about making referrals to other organizations, but that would be sort of a very fundamental low-level expectation that we would have of our local nonprofits to support one another and provide those types of resources, but really looking for actively sharing and planning within and across your organizations and serve in service to overall improved outcomes for the particular populations that you're serving, and looking for strong evidence of that. We're also looking at your organizational capacity. We know that some organizations are struggling with staffing and revenue sources, and a host of challenges and barriers that have come about, and also some new opportunities. So we want to make sure that your organization and feel confident has the capacity to be able to continue to carry that work out well. And looking for evidence of work and practices that advance racial equity. And we've had questions throughout 2021, and we continue to have those in 2022. And we encourage you to use these as opportunities as well. Use these questions as opportunities to take them back to your board and have some more in-depth discussions. Use them with your staff, in your collaborations, to dive deeper into these questions of what are barriers to greater racial equity. here is a wonderful image of our fall review team members. We had 19 members in our fall grant cycle review team, and they were an engaged, enthusiastic group. And I want you to recall that when we provide so much more than just financial services when we're doing that. We're not 5 to 7 people sitting around the table making these decisions cycle after cycle. We're a constantly changing group of people. So that's why even if you're requesting the same thing you requested a year earlier, you're educating your peers and the community about the services that you provide. And they're talking to each other and they're talking to their peers. So we talk a lot about not providing just financial services, but informational and relational services as well. So there's a substantial ripple effect as you're making application to the Community Foundation, whether or not you do get funded, frankly. All right, so let's talk a little bit about that matchmaking and how we sort of magnify philanthropy. So we certainly have discretionary dollars that are very flexible that we can that we plan to invest in this and other grant cycles. But we also look for alignment between your particular projects and special issue funds that we hold here. We hold many funds, often called field of interest funds, like our Women's Fund, like our Children and Youth Fund, and a variety of other funds that have some specialized areas. So in order to do some matchmaking, we'll ask you in a drop down, is you providing uniquely services that tend to any of these specialized areas. It doesn't mean you're limited to this. I don't want that to be how this is interpreted on the application. You can click none of these and that is just fine. It doesn't close your opportunities toward additional funding. And then in addition to that, we also share the summaries of your applications with over 135 fund advisors. So you likely know we house many donor advised funds, and these are often advised by individuals who are locally based, who are very philanthropically engaged and who want to learn more about services. We historically have been increasing, I'd say annually. Our fund advisors get more and more engaged and recognize the value that the Community Foundation can bring to them learning about needs in the community. And in 2021, our fund advisors contributed an additional $160,000 to this spring grant cycle. So that's the highest amount they ever have in a single grant cycle. So this is just such an amazing testimony to the generosity of our local donors. And this isn't all, some of these donors are embedded in our nonprofit sector. Some of them are stealth in the community and engaged in the work, and others are very visible in their support and use that visibility to enlist their peers to engage philanthropically as well. So there's room for all kinds of attribution and visibility with these funds. All right, so examples of application questions. The application's very similar to the grant cycles last year. We'll ask general questions about your mission. Some of our review team members can be concerned about mission drift. If organizations are getting away from what their core mission is, they're looking at, are you focused on your core mission? They'll certainly ask for some actuals and estimates of budgets and financials from last year, this year, and estimates for next fiscal year. How is your organization delivering on its mission? What do you need most to accomplish it? And then, of course, talk about the individual programs that you carry out, because that really is the bread and butter of what they're most interested in learning about. How are you measuring the impact of the variety of programs you carry out? How are you how do you know when you've made a difference? How are you figuring that out for yourselves? So this is an opportunity to really help you articulate your own impact for other audiences as well. And as always, we will provide some written quantitative and qualitative feedback for each application that comes through, so that you have a sense of what moved the review team, where areas that you might strengthen future applications, and get some insights from that. So there's a variety of questions. Changing needs of your organization. What's your organization most proud of this last year? Tell us some of those stories of individuals. Keep that anonymous, names and things, but tell us what you're proud of. Tell us about what goals you have for the upcoming year, and of course about your collaborations, as we mentioned. In addition, about your organization's capacity, how you've been affected, your staffing, your revenue sources, and what maybe you might be anticipating in terms of changes in those years. And there's those questions related to diversity, equity, inclusion, as well, as we previously discussed. You can access the application by going to our website. When you go to our homepage, you can click on the grant opportunities, and in there you'll find descriptions of all of our grant cycles and links to Community Force, which is our grants management software. If you have any Don, you can reach out to Madeline Rosas, and I'll provide her information on the next slide. And then just a reminder, I mentioned that, we do these grant cycles, but there's so much more that we're engaged in the community in addition to the grants. And something that came out of 2020, where we really wanted to support providing information to grantees, to our fund advisors, to donors, to engaged community members and other stakeholders in the community. And so we do monthly Let's Talk sessions. These are 30-minute sessions during lunchtime that hosts. It's very much like this. It's somebody presenting for a short time and then an opportunity to do some Q&A. When you register for it, there's opportunities to ask questions in advance to assure that they will get responded to during the presentation. And these have been very, very well attended. And in addition to that, we keep a recording of these on our video page so that anyone can go back and see previous presentations. If you see an absence of an issue you would like to see spotlighted, by all means suggest that to me or Amy Levere, and we're always sort of gathering that information, and we certainly want to be responsive to those, to you and to the community. Our next Let's Talk is actually Tuesday, March 8th. It's a week from today at noon, and we'll be hosting Frank Krippa. And he'll be answering, there are a lot of questions that came in on this one, and so we'd love to have you join us for that. So essentially, for technical questions that you might have, you can reach out to Madeline Rosas. Madeline's been with us for a couple months, is amazing, and is learning the technical components of our grant cycles rapidly. And she can assist you with technical support related to your application. And if you have content related questions, you can reach out to me directly as well. Email is the best way to do that. And remember, I'm not making, the decisions on funding, right? I'm not making funding decisions. I'm here as a resource and a liaison for you. So, so if you aren't sure or want, we need some clarifying, or if you just want to brainstorm and whether or not it's related to the spring grant cycle or something else, I provide that service regularly to many nonprofits, and I learn a great deal from you in those conversations, and happy to keep those confidential if that's what that requires. But just know that that I'm here, and we are here as a resource to your organization. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and start fielding some questions. And I'm wondering if